Hello, I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. These episodes are short and definitely reflect the view of management. Welcome to episode 39 of Confessions of an SEO. I think I told you last week that this week's episode might be late, but it's not. So you may be saying, what's up? Well, the trip I was going to go on got canceled because of the hurricane, and this trip is the annual one I take with my brother. We go to our mom's hometown where we spent the summers when I was a kid, but we just rescheduled it once it was clear there was no way for him to get out of Florida. A lot of my family, well, except, frankly, except for one brother-in-law, all of my family is in Florida. I'm grateful that everyone made it through. They were safe, and I think probably everybody everywhere was traumatized by these warnings, even, survivors in North Carolina, after what they went through, that it impacted them as well. So there's nothing like this sort of shared event, community event that, you wonder, wow, nothing changed that much in my life, and yet other people, it changed everything. And it makes you sort of think, when you look at what you do every day, it's like I started to think, why do we tolerate our lives and our living we make messing with Google? It got me to thinking about Google and how I got to this point where I have created an indexer just in time now that the indexing API isn't sending the bot anymore. And then it moved into SEO testing until I thought about Kyle Roof. Now, I met Kyle at a SEO conference in 2015. We happened to be sitting next to each other and got to talking, and one thing led to the other, and all of a sudden I no longer cared about the conference. I wanted to hear more about these words that Google does not know. And well, the rest of that is history. We started testing and sharing setups and test results. I felt this was such a huge sea change for the SEO community. I put him forward as a speaker at SEO Rockstars later that year, and the first SEO testing group was born. Never looked back, except this past weekend. I kind of wish I had been tracking the sites based on his groundbreaking work, or as he likes to call it, the thing that made him famous. For those that may not be familiar with his work, Kyle took part in a contest to see who could rank the highest for a particular search phrase within a set period of time. He did not win. But what happened afterwards was far more consequential to our work as SEOs. So I kind of think he did win. And how this went down was the day after the end of the contest, and somebody else had been sort of crowned king of search. Kyle's site not only outranked the winner, but went on to the number one position in organic search and in the map section. The little listing he'd created also was ranking number one in there. And as cool as that was, the ranking was not the coolest part about it. If you happen to be someone who looked at the site, it was mostly lorem ipsum, the placeholder text that looks like words but isn't. And there's no way that site would have convinced anyone to make a call, So the question is, why did he do it? After, he wrote about it afterwards, and he even included apologies to one of the plastic surgeons who I guess lost their number one spot to Kyle's insanely unreadable site. There's a huge article, and I happened to be at a different conference with Kyle when it all came out, and the thing kind of blew up the internet. The way it was seen by people who I consider to be maybe more Google apologists, and the writer that broke the story to the rest of the world, didn't bother to contact Kyle or get his input or consider there might be another side of the story than what they specifically saw from their positions. Basically wrote about how poor little Google was embarrassed by this SEO guy. Look how horrible this person made Google, the great and powerful Google, look ridiculous by tricking Google into making a site like this rank. he spent some time trying to explain how Kyle had caused the site and its local listing to rank so well. Well, I mean, it was, well, I'll just say, I won't talk about how he explained it, but if you understood on page, you kind of understood why it ranked. And if you were an SEO tester, you knew why it ranked. Those of us who knew Kyle, we understood who his intended audience was, that this was for, and it was for us, as SEOs. He took words related to rhinoplasty plano, and he inserted them into all the places on a web page where Google would see them. And we knew from all of our SEO tests that some of us, who'd gotten really good at running these HTML tests, the tests informed us which zones Google actually read. And I'm using ear bunny quotes when I say that. The rest of the web page was every bit lorem ipsum, and if you don't know what that looks like, at the time, Google thought it was Latin and offered to translate the pages. But you can Google lorem ipsum generator, and you'll see what text looks like. So if you can imagine coming across a whole site where most of the text was like that, you'd be like, yeah, what is this? Now, Kyle, like I said, his mission was to show SEOs how much on-page influenced ranking, because it enhanced Google's understanding of the page. So ultimately, it boiled down to Google is an algorithm. It was based on math. And because it was based on math, there was more to optimization than the title, meta description, and H1 to play with when it came with communication vectors with Google. And at the same time, like, if you're working on a carpentry project, you get sawdust all over the floor. There was sawdust to this test. And the sawdust was the ungodly realization that Google couldn't read. If Google could have read that content, they would never have ranked that site. And it was right there on the page, visible to everybody and their dog. Now, all this, is it the Flesch reading score and Kincaid grade level? It really didn't matter to Google. Yes, absolutely. A real visitor would have appreciated the effort made to make content understandable. But if Google wasn't reading it, and clearly that was a side shoot off of his test, to call it out, I guess as a test, seems like such a diminutive way to describe it. I mean, this was truly, unassumingly groundbreaking clapback. Now, up until then, everybody thought the emperor wore clothes, and Kyle had literally stripped Google naked with lorem ipsum. It was great. And, well, the rest is history. Or is it? Because that led me, like I said, to wishing I had been tracking all the sites, because part of the afterbirth of all this coming to light was that basically Google de-indexed not just this one site, but every site that Kyle had in his name. Damn it. And for others, in the spirit of retesting, they copied Kyle's content, and they made their own sites that were ranking also in the #1 spot in various cities. Hialeah, Florida was one. Now, so far, I spent a good part of the weekend looking. I haven't found any live ones. And I took to SEMrush, which is an SEO tool that I use. And apart from the allure of their high price plan is their historical data. Well, it seems not every search phrase has historical data. Rhinoplasty plano is one search phrase that there is very little historical data on. So if there's anybody out there that knows of any site based on Kyle's test that is currently live and ranking, would you please let me know? You can email confessions@americanwaymedia.com, because I'm tempted, based on what we see, which is this sustained volatility, the helpful content system. There's a threshold for content to even get indexed and another one to even stay indexed. I'm wondering if such a test, like the one Kyle created, is even possible in this current environment. And you might be thinking, Carolyn, what would lead you to say that other than what you just said? Well, I think a lot has changed in terms of how Google understands pages. And this is where we get into the significance, I think, of Kyle's work. You know, they are vested in taking content at scale, and they've resorted to using these large language models, kind of like predicting words together in specific groups, conveying meaning. And now Google can determine topics at scale without having to read it in a way like we do. Now, logically, this perplexes me still. I'm going to work helpful content in this because it's my show. I still wonder why SEOs insist that helpful content is content written in a way that is helpful to the expectations of a visitor. We know as SEOs, or some of us do, that Google doesn't read. But in an environment where Google doesn't read, but has greatly enhanced their understanding of what they're taking in, how could helpful content be content? You know, they already have rules on how to determine relevancy, so it's not going to be things necessarily that are related to relevancy. But anyway, forgive me, I digress. In my indexation test, it became clear after December 5th, 2022, that Lorem Ipsum was not as performative as it had been in the earlier years, 2015 through 2019. I'm inclined, based on data, that a site such as the one that Kyle, I guess, pioneered for rhinoplasty plano, I believe would struggle in today's SERPs to achieve the success that he was able to do just 6 years ago. I'm not taking anything away from Kyle or this magnificent test. Like I say, I think Kyle himself has said and used these words, that in a way, these are my words now, Kyle kind of embarrassed Google, so much so that they literally changed how they managed content and assigning topics to it based on these predictive word capabilities of the LLMs, the large language models that basically are the DNA for the AI applications. So Kyle, or anyone like Kyle, can now no longer figure out things as mathematically as he did. Maybe Kyle is the guy responsible for all this sustained SERP volatility that's driving people insane. Let's go get him. Grab your pitchforks and torches. But just kidding. All right. Many of you know that I've been checking Wix Studio out lately, and it's their web development platform aimed at agencies and enterprise. And it's all about creating these gorgeous websites with all these capabilities, full stack solutions, and even some AI magic, thrown in for good measure. And it is the only site builder that I'm aware of that has a bot report so that you can know what Google is eyeing on your sites, because normally site builder platforms don't share that information. And that alone makes Wix stand out in my view. So if you're itching to level up your design game at scale, Wix Studio might be worth a peek. You can even create your own widgets and interactive components that can be used on Wix sites and make some cash by selling them on the Wix app market. If you're curious, give it a look at wix.com/studio. Who knows? It might be just what you need to take your web design skills to the next level and even gain more website business. Now, before I let you go, the alpha testing phase began last week on Indexzilla. If you do not know what that is the name of my indexation platform. And I got the first round of thumbnails for the logo, so it's real, people. Looking to open this up to a little larger group here in a little bit, include more who are in my crawl or no crawl group on Substack. So if you're not already in there, you might want to get in there. Based on the testing I'm doing, like I said, the indexing API is no longer connected to the crawling system that sends the bots. And you know what happens to content that is sent to indexing by the API? Nothing. So nothing like being a pre-beta tester with free credits and a promise of more if you help me test this out on this platform. Well, that's it for me this week. If you need help with your site and you're not sure where to dig, my specialty is forensic SEO. I find weaknesses in sites and bring solutions to strengthen them to create more success through the same site. To stay on the cutting edge of the state of indexing, as well, like I said, as first access, I should say, maybe this will be the second phase within a couple of weeks. Check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. You can join there and you'll be on the list of first notifications. Thank you for being a listener. If you have questions or other topic ideas, I'd love to hear from you. You can text confessions at 512-222-3132. Thanks again, and until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.